system, light up the mind. We're chasing the edges they say not to find. Flow like a river, fierce and precise. Lollydabbing through limits, no need to think twice. No cheat code, no shortcut plan, just grit and grace and a mic in our hand. Keri and Richard, pushing past norms, dancing with dopamine, writing brainstorms. This is the art of impossible. Fueling the spark, making the improbable unstoppable. Drop into flow, where the wild things grow. Welcome to the edge of control. Lollydabbing the impossible. Curiosity's compass, purpose is fuel. Hard goals and habits, breaking old rules. Risk it, own it, bend what you know. This is the lab where peak minds grow. No easy win, no magic cue, just science and soul and something true. We're not just talking, we're breaking the mold. Lollydabbing with stories bold. This is the art of impossible. Fueling the spark, making the improbable unstoppable. Drop into flow, where the wild things grow. Welcome to the edge of control, with Keri and Richard in tow. It starts with passion, moves with grit. Stack those triggers, then commit. You're not broken, you're built to fly. So lollydab loud, reach for the sky. This is the art of impossible. Fueling the spark, making the improbable unstoppable. Drop into flow, let your mission grow. Keri and Richard know we're lollydabbing the impossible.
Well, look, I didn't put us in that weird alternate universe where Keri and Richard of the previous episode started talking and threw us all off. I got the right intro video this time. I can't hear you. Your sound is not working. Can you hear me? Okay, but I can't hear you. No. No. I was in such a hurry. I think I glued my eyelid to my eyelash because yeah. And you can see the mess behind me. I've got stacks of shit because anyway, listen. It's been a week, y'all. It's been a week. Thank you, Robbie. My hair is unbrushed, my eyelashes are glued on crooked, and I'm very sweaty. I'm pretty sure Richard's not wearing any clothes. It's been a week. It's fine. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We're trying to figure out whether or not Emperism stayed up all night to watch this, or whether he woke up very early in the morning. Either way, I'll take him. I'll take him. And also, I wonder where I put my cigarettes because, phew, I'm stressed. Well, no, I'm not stressed. I'm actually not stressed. I'm excited. I'm excited because we missed last week. We're here this week. The universe was calling. That is a most excellent answer, sir. Most excellent answer. You know what? I'm like, why does my neck hurt? It's because I have StreamYard on the wrong screen and I keep looking to the side. There we go. Whew, much better. How you doing over there, sir? You get that sound up yet? We're still. It's because you used Restream. I'm gonna blame it on Restream. Because you used Restream. Now your shit's all fucked up. Robbie wants to know how the universe got Ember. Richard is going Chaplin mode. Yes, yes. Charlie Chaplin. For a second, I read that. Gain Chaplin mode. I thought it was some sort of fancy audio engineering term, but no, I don't think that's what that meant. Do you need to go out and go back in? Do we need to play our intro again real quick? Because I could really use to get some cigarettes. I seem to have left them all the way over there. And I don't have you. I don't have you to fill the dead air. What did you think of our intro? Or, I mean, it's the same intro. Robbie's seen it a lot. That might be Emperorism's first time. Rachel Aloha. Welcome. The universe called you too? Listen, Richard, you gotta get that mic straight. The universe is dialing people up to come watch us. How is this book helping Richard's audio? Listen, he's thinking so deep, he's frying circuit boards. His brain is working overtime. And his computer's like too much electricity. I don't know how I just did that. Did you just do that to yourself? Did you take yourself off the... Oh. Well, if you need to go out and come back in, that's fine. If you need to do that again. For those of you who are new, and actually, I don't know if... I mean, I've seen a couple of our shows, at least parts of them, and Rachel Aloha, you are a new face, if you will, name. Do we say new face when they show up? I'm going with new face. If you haven't been here, we are going through some of my favorite books. One of these days we'll get to some of Richard's favorite books, but so far it's been my favorite books. Yes. Rachel Aloha says you need to breathe because you're turning blue, Rich. Breathe. So our current favorite, well, my favorite book that we are currently going through is The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler, and we're taking it slow. I like to call it like a next level sort of growth and development book. I think it goes far beyond your sort of oh, you've lurked before. Well, thank you for joining us in the chat. I love that you've lurked before. Anyways, he's taking us through kind of next level growth and development. I think it's far beyond like a self-help book. I think it's like a performance mastery book. And I think it can be applied to anybody at any time. It gives you a chance to kind of slow down in order to speed up. What is it? Like slow is smooth and smooth is fast sort of mentality. And we are just getting ready. We kind of been through a lot of the preliminary things, a lot of the background things. Growth like an extra arm out of your back. Who doesn't want an extra arm out of... I mean, that way you can actually, you know, scratch your ass. I don't know. An extra arm out of your back is not a terrible thing. Richard wishes he had an extra arm right now. Anyway, so we're just about ready to get into... Do I even have my book right now? It's like over there in that stack. As soon as Richard gets his sound fixed, I'm gonna have you guys entertain him and tell you about his week, so I can grab a couple of things. But we're about ready to get into the art of learning almost anything. This is one of my favorite sections in this book, where we get to look at like the 5 books of stupid. And is that what it is? I don't know. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Anyway, there's a lot of sections in here that like show you how to learn the maximum amount in like the smallest amount of time. And anything that can help me learn more faster makes me a happy girl. Learning is fun. It's what I do for fun. It's what I do in my spare time, is I try to dive into all sorts of different topics. I generally like to learn the thinky things. I get more frustrated learning how to do the doey things, like how to set up sound appropriately. Not my favorite. keep stretching it out. keep stretching, Keri. I could be louder. Okay, I was worried I was too loud. How's that? Is that better, Robbie? It was just, I have it hooked up through my singing thing, and so it's a little different than when I hook it up straight through my Focusrite. Because, sound is a thing. Richard's gonna unhook everything and rehook everything back up, and he'll be right back. So I guess this is a good time to, I don't know, ask you guys about yourselves. Richard could be a little louder too. Well, that goes without saying. Have you guys had any chance to look up any of Stephen Kotler's YouTube videos or shorts or anything? No? Yes? No? You say yes? You say no? Listen, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull up a Stephen Kotler short. If you go to my channel, somewhere under like the playlists, I have the Flow Research Collective radio playlist down there. I think it's really awesome. I highly recommend. Let's see. We've gone through... let me get this. Crickets. I know. So many crickets. Let's see. Stephen Kotler. Let's... I'm trying to see. Here's a good one. Here's a summary in under 11 minutes because, well, maybe, no. Let me see if I can find. That's a 46-minute thing. I mean, I could just play that. Here's a good one. I'm going to share this with you guys. Let me click on that. This is from the Big Think channel. Let me get past my ads. Okay, I think I've played the Big Think before with Miss Lisa Feldman Barrett. You know what I really love is today I went into my daughter's therapist's office and we had a little chat, and she was trying to remember some things about the science of emotion. And I was like, I have somebody for you. And I got to share Lisa Feldman Barrett. It's always fun to share with professionals things that they hadn't realized. So far, she really likes that. Anyway, fun fact, humble brag, whatever. Let me share this screen. This is Stephen Kotler talking about the art of impossible, and so you can get some of that information straight from his self. Add to stage. That'll give me a chance to grab my book as well as my cigarettes, because smoking has acetylcholine, which, I mean, it's not great for you, but it also helps with learning and focus. Take that. Yes, I believe Richard got sucked up by the internet, but he'll be back.
The impossible become possible. One of the really incredible things things about being human is we're all built for peak performance. It comes as a fundamental part of being human. And what I mean by that is getting our biology to work for us rather than against us. This is not a new idea. William James said the great thing in all education is to get our nervous system to be our ally and not our enemy. And by our nervous system, right, he meant our brain and our biology. We're all capable of so much more than we know. When we hear something impossible has been done, we start thinking about it. And then you start asking questions, well, what would it look like when I did it? And then you start thinking about, how would you do it? How would you train it? And you're like, oh, wow, far out. I guess that is possible. My name is Stephen Kotler. I'm a writer and a researcher, and my latest book is The Art of Impossible. There's something in psychology and neuroscience we talk about as the banister effect. This is the idea that you have to believe something is possible before it becomes possible. It's named after Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister was the first person to run a sub 4 mile. And before he did it, this was a great, crazy impossible.
May 6th, a British medical student, Roger Bannister, earned sports immortality, the first man to break the legendary 4-minute barrier, running a mile in 3 minutes, 59 and 4/10 seconds.
They really thought the first person who did it was going to die from it. It was a total impossible. Bannister runs the first sub 4 mile, and then a month later, somebody breaks his record. And then a couple months after that, somebody shatters that new record. Within 5 years, teenagers have done it. So you got to ask yourself, the hell happened, right? The same physical requirements for running a sub 4 mile haven't changed. All that's changed is the mental frame we built around the feat. What used to be impossible is now seen as possible. And we start thinking about it. And the brain thinks in pictures and it starts working out, well, what would that look like? And then you start asking questions, well, how would you do it? How would you train it? And it becomes a little more probable. What it essentially says is that, look, there's a very, very, very tight coupling between our psychology and our physiology. And if we can pre-wire our brain with the patterns we're going to perform ahead of time, when we actually start to perform those patterns, you're going to get dopamine from pattern matching. It may help drive us into flow. And flow is an optimized state of consciousness where we feel our best and we perform our best. This idea dates back all the way to Goethe, who uses the German word Rausch, which means overflowing with joy. Nietzsche actually wrote about flow. William James worked on the topic, but Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is often referred to as the godfather of flow psychology. And he went around the world talking to people about the times in their lives when they felt their best and they performed their best. Everywhere he went, people did the same thing. They said, you know, when I'm at my best, when I'm feeling my best, when I'm performing my best, I'm in this altered state of consciousness where every action, every decision I make seems to flow effortlessly, perfectly, seamlessly from the last. So that's where the term flow comes from. It's actually another phenomenological description of the state. Flow actually feels flowy. When psychologists want to know if you were in flow, they say, well, was there complete concentration on the task at hand? Was there a merger of action and awareness? Did self vanish? Did time dilate? And this is an experience we all have, right? You get so sucked into what you're doing, you look up and 5 hours go by in like 5 minutes. Because we don't register peak performance as a sensation, what we feel on the inside is sense of control, the ability to control things that we normally can't control. This is a basketball player in zone talking about seeing the hoop, something that's big as a hula hoop. And throughout, all aspects of performance, both mental and physical, go through the roof. Across the board, flow tends to show up whenever we see the impossible become possible. Productivity, motivation skyrocket in flow, and sometimes 500% above baseline. And that seems like a huge stratospheric number, and it would be very, very suspicious if it wasn't in line with all the other research. For example, the Department of Defense looked at soldiers in flow, and they're looking at learning. It turns out we will learn 240 to 500% faster than normal when we're in flow. We see creativity spike 400 to 700% in flow. On the physical side,
we have a grip of musicians in our chat. And so I just want to speak to that. Yeah, I know, my little, listen, I will put this into the link into the chat so you guys can finish watching that video. But really what I wanted to talk about was the musician thing. Because I know we have some musicians and I am big into learning and I can relate to this. And I think what is most interesting about this book that we are going through is that it is, it's all about being able to leverage your biology to hit that flow more often. It's about being able to not just kind of catch it in a fleeting glimpse, but how to use your biology to manufacture it on a regular basis when you want to be able to hit that creative flow, or for me, that learning flow, and then really allow yourself like a recovery or recuperation phase, and then be able to get yourself back into flow again. Because it is that sort of ethereal state that gives us, like, puts us, in the pocket of being able to create right at the very edge of what we're, physically and mentally able to do. So even though it's related a lot to, like, he kind of discovered it through this sports sort of arena of extreme sports in winter sports, and through surfing, he actually talks a lot, if you find respiration for inspiration. Yes. I like that. Flow is not anything that you can catch. Flow is something you can obtain. Yes, I that's exactly what he teaches. And how to obtain it on a regular basis, Empressism, is really what he is teaching people through this book, based on neuroscience and neuro research, as well as, see if Richard's back yet. Nope. Let's see. Nope, Richard is not back yet. But anyways, he talks about how you can, like, obtain it regularly without, like, the use of, without having to use anything other than your own biology. And I love what he says when he says, personality isn't scalable, but biology is. So you could have a personality that's naturally inclined towards creativity, and you can drop into flow, at seemingly random intervals. But this is how you can scale your biology to be able to predict your flow states and to harness it as often as possible. He also was a direct student from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and Mihai Csikszentmihalyi said, be careful when it comes to harnessing flow just based on physicality, because you can break yourself very easily by using, by only obtaining flow through a physical state, as far as like sports or, surfing, skiing, things of that nature. If you can get to that point in a creative sense, it actually keeps you producing more, and it's like easier on your body. Hi, Indy, welcome. Thank you for sharing it out. Wish you could stick around, but we'll take you for as long as we can have you. Richard is having some technical difficulties currently, so I am doing my best to entertain. The update is my audio has crashed. I'm working on a bypass. I'm going to blame, I'm still going to blame that on Restream, just because I have such a problem with Restream, and I know he's been using it a lot lately. So, that's what I'm blaming it on. Anyways, that being said, I'm going to finish out this little video here, because sometimes I know this is going to come as a shock, but I get tired of just listening to myself talk. So we're going to play this out just a little bit more. Hopefully it's not as choppy as it was. My little thing that said I was having choppy internet has gone away. So here we go.
Side flow will amplify strength, stamina, endurance. This might sound like, what the hell? Why would one state of consciousness amplify all these different things? Like, what is going on that almost doesn't make any sense? until you remember that it was evolution that shaped flow. Evolution itself is predominantly a reaction to scarcity, right? Resources get scarce. That's the biggest driver on evolution. And we have two options. We can fight over dwindling resources, or we can flee to avoid becoming somebody else's resources. Or we can get cooperative, get creative, get innovative, and make new resources. This is everything that flow amplifies. Flow is universal in humans. It's actually universal in most mammals, and definitely all social mammals. So all the systems that produce flow are in all of us. What we're getting is everything we need to fight or flee, or get creative, get cooperative, and make new resources. That was the largest lesson 30 years in studying peak performance has taught me, is that we're all hardwired for flow. Flow is a massive amplification of what's possible for ourselves.
Get smarter, faster with videos from the world's biggest thinkers.
I personally really love that channel, The Big Think. It's a great channel for little snippets like that. But I highly encourage y'all to go find Stephen Kotler's longer interviews and check those out. Like I said, Flow Research Radio is a great resource just to hear about flow from all different perspectives. I'm a big proponent of listening to things from all sorts of perspectives, and I hear that Allie Patches is trying to get to her 4,000 hours goal. So listen, if we don't get Richard back soon, we might pop over there and I will restream her channel onto my channel, just because, whatever, we can get her some hours in that capacity too. Of course, go over to hers yourself. Don't watch it through me, but until Richard gets back, what are some of your guys' thoughts about flow that has stuck out to you, either through Kotler's perspective or through your own perspective? Empirism, maybe I can stick the link in the chat and you can come up and flow some music our direction. Robbie, are you ready with the song too? There's a good chance we're just going to freestyle this entire show. we're just gonna have a original music open mic until Richard gets his audio back. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just do that. We'll see if we can get some flow in real time here. Oh, there he is. Maybe he's
I do believe you can hear me now.
Well, we can. I was about ready just to go full freestyle, sir.
I don't know. You know, there's this thing that the universe does to me sometimes. So I decided to heck with it. I'll just restart. It's happened before and it's cleared it up. Windows was doing an update. So in Windows, I had to wait for the Windows update. Then I get back into Windows. Finally, I'm into Windows. I'm starting to open stuff back up. I open up OBS because I use virtual camera. OBS needs an update. So I update OBS. And then I open up Reaper, which is what I use for my sound. And Reaper needs an update. So I had to go through 3 different programs and 3 different updates. And I still don't know what was wrong. I still don't know what was wrong. Anyway, hi, everybody. I can't see chat right now. I have to go and do all that. But
you'll get there. Richard was in flow and he got his audio, is what Empirism says. Robbie says the duck has returned.
The duck has returned. Yes. Popping out the chat. Okay. It sounds like I do have. Yeah. Okay. That's right. There we are. I see Auntie is out there. Everything is good. Flow Radio. That sounds
Flow
interesting.
Radio. That's the Flow Research Radio. That's the link to the one that I'm constantly.
Well, let me
talking about.
open up this link in a new tab so I can look at it later.
Yes. Well, it's also, I believe, on my channel. But you are very focused on actually going through the book, which I love.
I am to the last chapter of listening. I have not listened to the final chapter yet.
Really?
Yeah. But
Wow, 2 weeks and you just dove right in head first.
yeah, but I decided a couple of days ago to go back to chapter 4 with new knowledge from getting up through 18 or whatever it is in the many, many steps chapter.
In the many, many steps chapter. So I think where we're at with the chat is section 2, learning.
Yeah.
All right. So how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. That's a quote from Annie Dillard, which...
And it's truth.
Yeah. There's no crying in live streaming. We don't allow crying. We do allow crying in kitchens, but you have to go in the walk-in to do it. That's the rule. Yeah. You gotta go in the walk-in to cry.
Cold tears. Sadness.
Yes, they really are. So, let's see. I'll just read a little excerpt from it. If you're hunting high achievement, motivation is what gets you into the game, but learning is what keeps you there. Whether your interest is a capital I impossible, doing what's never been done, or a small I impossible, doing what you've never done, both paths demand that you develop actual expertise. What do you think about that? Is that ringing any bells for?
Well,
for that
it is.
chapter
It
for you?
is as far as. I mean, I'm very much into this now. I realized as I started 2 weeks ago when I mentioned that I'd gone back to rewrite my goals and all the things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started to write things down, I realized that the rate at which my goals are happening is too fast for me to develop a plan of where I want to go. Because as of this month, I have now discovered I might be flush.
We talked a
I
little bit
might
about that
be
last
flush.
show. And so
We're going to find out in a couple of weeks, but I might be flush. And that's a good feeling.
It is. It is, and it's just like a snowball effect, right? Because when you're
It
flush
is.
and you
It
realize
is.
that you have more time to kind of develop in areas, you're less in that sort of stress response where the cortisol is heightened. And
Absolutely.
you're like worried about things, and you're like, oh, I have.
I keep meaning to ask my friends what it is they take it's supposed to help stop you from developing the cortisol. I can't remember what it is. It's some supplement that they take that's supposed to stop that from happening or reduce this. I don't know. They're weird.
There's a lot of things you could do to reduce cortisol. And, Andrew Huberman has a pretty in-depth channel, and he covers, like, a lot of the neuroscience-y stuff. And he's big into biohacking with vitamins and such.
Right.
But I think that you can take that cortisol. I mean, and Stephen Kotler talks about it in this, is you can kind of, and some of his more extended talks after he wrote this book, because he, of course, hasn't stopped researching since he wrote this.
Oh no, this is a continuously expanding work as
It's
he
part of my
grows
life's
and
work, yeah.
yeah.
And he actually
I see you, Auntie, and Imp.
yeah, he actually discusses how cortisol can help, like, set off a flow response as well, because if you have trained yourself to be okay with the fear, which is that rush of cortisol that you get,
Right.
and you have embraced that, then you're able to fall back on your training, and you actually use that to jumpstart, like, extreme flow states, because there is degrees of flow. You can be in a
Sure.
minor flow state or a
That
major
makes
flow state.
perfect sense.
And pretty sure it's not Quaaludes, Auntie.
Although they may help in some situations.
And I've been okay. So and just to throw it out there, not a sponsor of our program because we do not have sponsors, but we are open to take them. I have been seeing a lot of ads for Stasis, which is a vitamin supplement that claims to help like people who are on like Adderall and things of that nature, so prescribed stimulants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's supposed to help even out those the peaks and valleys that come along with taking those prescribed stimulants, which whether or not you agree with them doesn't matter. There are drawbacks to all sorts of prescription drugs, and Stasis claims to help balance that. And I've been looking at it with interest, just kind of wondering.
When it comes to the whole fear response, that's I think about that a lot because I don't think of fear. I accept fear as something that I should feel, but I don't think of fear in a bad light necessarily. It can be, but oftentimes it's not. He talks about it like facing your fear and embracing it and going after it. That's how he deals with that fear, and that's to me a basic definition of courage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody going into battle that's getting bullets whizzing past their head as they're in there is feeling fear.
Yeah, fear is what courage.
Fear is not a negative on your personal, because courage comes from fear, because courage is what keeps your feet moving. Even though there's something zinging past your head, or there's a hard task ahead, or you don't know how you're going to accomplish it.
Yes.
And I realized that I've always done that. Just plowed. I just go, whatever. The best way to motivate me to tell me to get me to do something is to tell me I can't do it or that it can't be done. Whoa, okay, well, let's find out. And that's always been my thing. So I don't really understand if I do the facing of the fear the way he does it, because.
Well, I think that there is, and I don't know if this addresses what you're speaking to exactly, but it's something that's just kind of repeating in my head. And that is, I think some people get stressed out about fear, and stress is what kills, right? Stress is
Sure.
If you're stressed out about that unknown, about that fear, about that intense situation, then you tend to like either freeze up or run away from it.
Run away.
And like if you had seen this last clip, he really kind of talks about how if you can kind of shift that freezing up or running away response to a creative space of creating cooperative and novel solutions, that's kind of how you can get in through fear. So you come up against something hard or scary, and then really what social mammals are built to do is to find a place of cooperation and productivity and novel solution. Mm-hmm. And so and he really talks about it when it comes to his writing too. He's like, like sometimes I have to cry and throw myself on the floor and like just get really upset about it. But if I allow that to run its course and I get back up and I start writing again without running away from that writing session, then I'm able to actually produce some of the best work that I've ever produced in those moments. And I think that there's a lot of truth to, letting yourself feel that fear.
Yeah.
Pushing through to the other side of it into, okay, but what now? And I think that, like, you're with your battle example, I think that is probably a very compressed timeline because our brains are very amazing and they don't need a lot of time to kind of run through a cycle.
Exactly.
And you're trained for how to respond in those. Now, it's different when you're actually in the scenario. But
sure.
Again, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on the level of your training. And so if you train yourself to push through that initial sort of shock of that cortisol rush and push yourself into like kick on your acetylcholine and some of your other, neurochemicals to create that flow state, then you can actually produce exponential results. I mean, some of it's like 500%, increase in results.
Right.
So, Robbie has something he says here. It doesn't matter what you're scared of. Like, he feels fear standing and taking the first steps, but being helpless would be much worse than trying and falling. Yes, that's absolutely true. It's exactly true. And then
I find it's fascinating that the further I get into the book and the more I've listened to it. Now, going back to chapter 4 and starting back through again was a great idea.
Good.
Because it gives me new perspectives and new ways to think about this stuff. So I'm very excited about the possibilities. And I am trying to get to the point to where I will set some of those high, hard goals. Because right now I don't know what a high, hard goal is.
Well, yeah.
I'm living what I thought was impossible a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. This might be a book that we'll have to read together in the future. I had forgotten about this one, and I haven't read it yet. The Sources of Power. Psychologist Gary Klein makes a point that says he identifies 8 types of knowledge that are visible to experts, yet invisible to everybody else. Patterns that novices don't notice, anomalies or events that didn't happen or events that violate expectations, the big picture, the way things work, opportunities and improvisations, events that have already happened or will happen, differences that are too small for novices to detect, and then their own limitations. And there's a little footnote on that. I don't know where that, well, it's in the back. But without all of the knowledge on Klein's list, the impossible remains impossible because the items on Klein's list are literally the ingredients of impossible. They are the requisite knowledge base. But developing this base requires learning, a ton of learning. Lifelong learning is the technical term for this ton. Lifelong learning keeps the brain sharp and preventing cognitive decline and training up memory. It also boosts confidence, communication skills, and career opportunities. These improvements are the reason psychologists consider lifelong learning foundational to satisfaction and well-being. But for those interested in peak performance, there's also flow to consider. If our goal is to stay in the challenge skills sweet spot to maximize the time we spend in the zone, then we need to be constantly stretching ourselves to find the edge of our abilities.
No, Auntie, I am not.
Thought I'd put that up there since you were answering.
Maybe someday when I grow up. We'll see.
When we grow up. Okay, so what do you remember? Like, okay, so the ROI on reading. This I found a really exceptionally informative and awe-inspiring chapter. Do you remember that one?
That was... Where's my book?
I don't know. You said chapter 4, but I don't remember where chapter 4 is. Chapter 4 is goals. So, this is chapter 9.
There. Yeah, the ROI on reading. Yes.
Yep. So I like it because it discusses Hello.
Well, alrighty then.
Were you sleeping? I didn't have time to mute myself. We are out of control today, Richard.
We are, but it's really warm.
It's pretty warm out. We're already 44 minutes in. Let's power through this ROI of reading. It's a short little chapter.
Yeah, it is a short chapter, but it says a lot. I mean, there's quite a bit in here.
Yep. So he uses The Rise of Superman, which is a book on flow and the science of ultimate human performance. And the book is around 75,000 words long, so it takes the average reader about 5 hours worth of effort. So what do you get for your 5 hours?
Yeah, this is
In the case of
fascinating.
yeah, in the case of Rise of Superman, you get about 15 years worth of his life. So when you think,
Yeah, you got to. That you might. Some of you out there might have to stop and think about that for a minute.
yeah, every time you read a book, for instance, The Art of Impossible, he wrote The Rise of Superman years before he wrote The Art of Impossible. And The Art of Impossible really builds on that research from The Rise of Superman and extends it.
Yeah, he
and
mentions it more than
refinds
once
it the
in
way-
this book. In this book.
Yeah, and I think The Rise of Superman, you can actually listen to the entire audiobook on YouTube. Somebody has.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I still think buy the book, support the author, to support Stephen Kotler 100%. But also, I think Stephen Kotler is just a big proponent of getting knowledge out into the world. So
Yeah.
he'd be okay.
I would
He's got
venture to
info
guess
streams
that
from
if
other things.
if that was the only means in which you could experience it and it helped you and enriched your life, he would say, "Bravo, good for you for doing that." He wouldn't say, "Well, you should have bought my book."
Well,
He's not.
Because he doesn't
Yeah,
make
it's
his
not
money
the
off
way
his
he
books.
thinks. He doesn't operate that way.
He works bigger. He works bigger.
Yeah.
But his point is you have condensed 15, 20 years, 25 years, maybe in this case with the Art of Impossible, into what's the length on this book? 8 hours worth of audiobook?
Yeah, it's about 8 hours.
So when you can take somebody's decades of research and you get to ingest it in 8 hours, the ROI is you get that 15 years, 20 years worth of knowledge back. So like it multiplies.
And you also have it all referenced.
Yeah.
You can highlight it as you yourself have done.
Yeah.
In many, many, many pages.
Many pages.
There's nothing wrong with that. I never thought about. Now I love to read, but I've always read for pleasure, not necessarily for learning. I read for learning when I need new knowledge of something. Then I read, like putting together the thing. I read the instructions.
Yeah. But if you can read, like if you say you have an interest, I mean, you've kind of talked about, and I know you've redone your list since then, but you've talked about like audio stuff. But if you were to also include, let's see, where's this 5 books that's stupid? Because that was Gill of the Skill. But he really outlines this path of like how to actually read how to like orient yourself to a new knowledge. And it comes from like being able to start with like a book that is adjacent to what it is that you want to learn. And then where is I know listen, it's in here somewhere. Let's see, flow triggers, creativity triggers. Maybe it's back one. But the way he outlines the 5 different books.
Oh, that's a great point, Emperism. Sorry. Go ahead.
What's his point? Let me read it. Like to learn from experience, because rote knowledge could be, of course, wrong. Experience could be as well, but you can analyze it. It is, but you can analyze it better. It is or not. Well, and I think that like while you're experiencing something, also like reading about the thing that you're experiencing kind of helps you see what has been already.
Yeah. And that's really where
and the reasons why people have done things that way, and that's how you kind of you get back to those sort of first principles of whatever it is that you are diving into.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes back to what he's talking about is in always learning. You never you just don't stop learning. I've said for most of my adult life, the day I stop learning will be the day I die.
Absolutely.
Because I try to learn something new every day. Go ahead.
I found it. The 5 books
Okay.
are stupid. So don't just pick any 5 books on the subject. There's an order to the chaos. Book 1. Start with the most popular, best-selling book you can find on the topic. Fiction, nonfiction, it doesn't really matter. The goal is fun, fun, fun. The first book is less about real learning and more about gaining a little bit more familiarity with the world you're about to enter and a basic sense of its lingo. Book 2. This is also a popular book, but a little bit more technical and more on point. This book is either closely related to or directly about the subject under investigation. Once again, the main goal here and the reason to choose popular books is to generate excitement within yourself, right? Because it's that curiosity and that excitement that keeps you going on to the next thing.
Yep.
And what's
That
funny is,
makes
as
sense.
I was reading through this, I'm like, this is totally what I do. I don't necessarily just do it with books, because I infuse a lot of podcasts into that, and I infuse a lot
Sure.
of like, and I will. I'll just like search something in my Spotify, and I'll just start listening to all the podcasts that have to do with that, and just listen to it in the background, and just kind of get familiar with the lingo. It's how I've learned about startups. It's how I've learned about business. It's how I've learned about neuroscience. It's how I've learned about like my daughter's OCD. It's how I've learned about like, you know, so many things, is kind of like playing that stuff in the background. So I really think that books 1 and 2 you can really do in an auditory sense through what is going on now. And that's what I really love about long form podcasts, and even short form ones. If I, you know, like the short form ones are kind of higher level stuff. And I really use that, like maybe I have to listen to more hours than just books 1 and 2, but it's the same sort of philosophy, I believe. So you need that excitement. Book 3 is the first semi-technical book on the subject, something that is still readable and interesting, but maybe not quite a page-turner. This book builds on the ideas learned in books 1 and 2, layering in more precise language and expert-level detail. This is also where you get to the shadowy outline of the big picture. Towards the end, in this third book, try to find something that provides a look at the wider view, a macroscopic perspective on the subject. If you're reading about trees, this might be the time to learn something about systems ecology. If you've been studying couples therapy, this might be the time to read up on the history of social psychology. Do you see kind of where he's going there? So book four, we've arrived. Book 4 is the first actual hard book you want to read on the subject. It isn't something as nearly as fun as the first 3, but it gives you a taste of the kind of problems that real experts in this domain are thinking about. Pay close attention to the field's current borders. Get a sense for when, why, and with what foundational ideas contemporary thinking about a subject begins and ends.
That makes sense.
Also, figure out where the crazy lies. The stuff that experts feel are boulder dash. You may not agree with these opinions, but you need to know that they exist, and more important, why they exist. And I think this really addresses what empirism is saying that I have up on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, rote knowledge could be wrong, and that's kind of the point. The point is to find the things that you think are wrong. You need to know that where they exist and why they exist. Book 5 is not always the hardest to read. That can often be book 4, but it's often the hardest to comprehend, because the goal here is a book that is directly about the future of the topic, where it's heading and when it's heading. And this book gives you a sense of the cutting edge. And again, he really utilizes this book idea, but we have so much exposure to podcasts, and I really try to find like the nerdiest podcasts, I think, for book 5. Like just really the nerdiest podcasts where people like, maybe they don't have the most listens, and that's because they're super boring, but they're super nerdy. And you can really get into it.
I understand that completely. Okay, I gotta address put Robbie's first comment up. There is no sorry here for so the second one's taken care of. I think when you get old and crippled, you know what you do best, but learning new things just isn't practical in my case. Could that be understood? It's not like time is on my side here, and I agree.
And also,
but I want to point something out to you.
And also,
you can jump in a minute.
Okay.
We just talked about, I believe it was today, an instrument that is going to be made that has never been made by the person that is making the instrument.
Can you
and that person is you, Robbie. That is learning something new, my friend. I love you, brother.
Tell me about
But
this.
you're already involved in it. You can't live your life in denial of the progress you are making. I love you.
Listen, learning something new. I think it's a good idea to frame what learning something new could be. is where
Exactly.
I
Context
go with
being
that.
everything.
Yeah, because I think that you are learning new things every time you show up here. And we might talk about something that tickles your fancy, and it may not be practically applicable to your life. But you don't really know that until you explore it in a vast sort of way, in a methodical sort of way, where you're like, that kind of tickles my fancy.
Mhm.
You know, maybe you're having a hard time relating to this idea of peak performance because Stephen Kotler does relate a lot of it to physical performance. But if you dig far enough, as I did, you will find that it actually has a lot to do with mental and creative performance. And it sounds to me like you're even taking that to the next level by creating some sort of instrument. So a way to create a new sort of sound, to create new melodies in a new sort of way. And that is really leveraging everything that Stephen Kotler is teaching.
Yeah.
And so if you want to create the next instrument and you want to create it faster, or if you want to complete your project, maybe looking at the neuroscience of how to get that done could be helpful. Could be helpful. And also, don't be sorry.
Right.
Don't be sorry. And we're not offended. We're not offended because I think you are the. I think that comment is
Yes.
the exception. that
Auntie, I
proves the
just
rule,
read it.
Sir.
Thank you.
It proves the rule.
Yeah.
And that
This is why we're here. This is why we're talking about this stuff, to explore it, to learn about it, to see what it does. And you guys are watching it change my life. Okay. So you say whatever you want about whatever you want to do. That's fine. It's your life. But you are watching these principles in this book change my life week to week. And Keri's guiding me through it. And in that, we talk about it. And so, that's why we're here, brother, is to talk.
Yeah, and we're here to talk about the things that we use as humans to kind of hold us back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just got, speaking of, I just got okay, so listen, I got distracted by this
It
last
was a paragraphical wormhole.
Yeah, this paragraph says, second, in these ADHD days, and what is ironic, it was an ADHD moment. That distracted me. When
Beautiful.
people don't like reading, 5 books seems like a lot, but it's definitely not. And like I said, I use podcasts a lot as my loophole for that. Because a lot of
My
people
son uses audiobooks. He does not like to read. He loves stories and information and learning and all of those things. But to sit down and physically read a book, he ain't got time for that. I got shit to do, but he'll listen to it while he's working, while he's driving, while he's whatever.
And I love things that like happen in real time, which is why I'll go to like long form YouTubes or long form audio platforms like podcasts, because it's kind of happening in real time. I watched this geologist. His name is Zentner, Nick Zentner. Zentner? Yes, Zentner. And he talks about how geology is always changing, and what we understand about macrogeology is changing. And I think that listening, empirism says listening or reading doesn't really matter. No, I don't think it does, because in a sense, if you zoom out and look at this like philosophy of 5 books of stupid, you you start with like a fictional book, and I've listened to so many fictional books that there are aspects in each of these fictional books that have caught my attention. I really enjoy Ken Follett. He writes a lot of historical fiction, and it's beautifully written, and he does a lot of deep research, and like he writes about like fictional families in real time events. So
Right.
like
things that are plausible. They might
like,
could have happened.
He doesn't know exactly what Winston Churchill said to these people in this house at this specific point in time, but he knows the outcome from a historical sense, and so he researches these personalities, and he knows, and there might have been some unnamed person that he's able to build a fictional character around that was also in that same time space continuum, and he really puts a lot of effort into that, and I think it's really important to understand, like, and that catches my attention, and then I dive into World War I, and I listen to who he does hardcore history. What is his name? Anyways, does a really great job with and getting into the minutia of all the things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then things kind of expand from there. And the next thing I know, I'm learning about like the South Pacific conflict, and it's like,
Right,
do I
right.
need, do I need any of this stuff? No, I
No.
don't need any of this stuff.
Not a single bit of it.
But the beauty of understanding history, it doesn't matter what you're doing creatively.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to understand where people have been in order to find out what is going to be new. Truly new. I got into the world of startup companies, and I was in a lot of forums and chats and group, like specifically for people who want to build startups. And I laughed because even though I'm not like a technical person, I'm looking at these things. I'm like, you guys, what you think is new and innovative is already being built over here, and you haven't like looked at it. So like, have you really researched this new innovative thing? Gotten into conversation with somebody who was trying to build, when AI first came out, they were trying to build a bot or an AI thing that would help companies streamline their bookkeeping and all these things. And I'm like, but you're moving too slow. What you don't understand is it's going to be your marketing that sets you apart, because Microsoft's already doing it. They've already figured out how to have like a encapsulated, like, use the AI to build your AI marketing faster so that you can get the word out there faster, because you only need 3 people and a great idea, and then you have to move on that. And it's really, other people are going to be building the same thing. It is what is going to happen. Copyright music, every time you write music, other people are going to be doing the same sort of thing, but it's how you present it in your own unique way that makes it special. Another thing, I followed like the coaching world for a while, and one of the ladies said a very insightful thing that I think is really in line with this, and she's like, put your best work out there for free so that you are forced to provide better new work behind a paywall. So you create something behind a paywall, you get paid for it for a little while, put it out there for free so that you force yourself, you force your brain into this flow state to create more goods behind that paywall again. Always be moving your programs forward and always be releasing stuff out for free that was once behind that paywall, because it forces you to progress. It forces you to
That makes perfect sense.
And I love that. It's one of the, I think, the most ethical things you can do as a thought leader and a conceptual person, especially if what you're selling is ideas, right? You're selling your thoughts. You can't covet those thoughts as not available to the rest of the world. You have to acknowledge the fact that other people, because you had the thought, other people are going to have that thought.
Yeah, even if they haven't yet, somebody will.
Somebody will. And so always be innovating. And I think the 5 Books of Stupid is a great way, because even if you don't think what you're reading is directly applying to what it is that you are creating in this world. And I highly encourage you to find stuff that you don't think is directly related to what you're, but that's how you find those new novel innovations.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Learn about history or art or politics. I learned a lot about business and behavioral science, and it taught me so much about psychology and social, like, abstracts that we don't really think about in everyday sort of things. Yeah. And that leads me to, like, how to think creatively. And sure, I may never teach behavioral science, or I may never go to college to be a behavioral scientist in a marketing sort of sense, but it does give me this greater understanding of humans. And it helps me to understand what people need, out of their lives and out of their experiences. And that can translate into any art that I do, food that I cook, conversations that I have, things of, Robbie, you're so sweet, and just kind of like my everyday life. It unlocks everything for me. And I never did it with the intention of it doing that, but I went through this process, and it was really before I learned about this specific process, but I love how he boiled it all down and really gave like a roadmap to people. I didn't realize I was kind of already doing it. And I think that...
Yeah, I know how that feels.
Yeah. So anyways, we're actually already over time, and I promised my boyfriend I'd come up and visit him because it's been like 3
Well, yeah, but
weeks,
there was.
4 weeks.
I want to as we're gonna start winding down. It's. I want to say bravo to chat. Look at this
Yeah.
conversation that's happening out here.
I'm loving it. It's all I can do.
That's probably one of the best parts of the show for me is seeing you guys start interacting with not only with us and what we're talking about, but each other. Thank you.
Yes.
Superb.
It's been amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward
I
now.
can't even decide what to put up there.
I am on the ROI chapter right now. That's what I am currently re-listening to. I haven't started into it yet. I'm at the beginning, but this time I'm playing all the way through the end, and then I'm going to start over again.
Yeah, you can't help yourself. And even Auntie, like
I find so many things I missed, or I misconstrued, or
as you live your lived experience and you go back and you listen again, you're like, whoa, there's more. Oh, there's more. Oh, there's more. And Auntie, when you talk about hand skills, learned by doing, but I really think that like diving, welding, building, etc., like there are books to be read. Like I've learned a lot about building things, starting with Ken Follett. In one of his first series he does is like about the evolution of like the arches in churches and the evolution of architecture. He follows this building family, and like it really kind of got me interested in like the history of building. And when you kind of understand like the historical things of what you're doing with your hands, and then conceptual things when you go into like building domes or building, you know, rocket ships, like, you know, like you can go so many different places and you see what a broad spectrum of building is, what a broad spectrum of welding is. When you look at welding from a functional standpoint to like underwater welding to art welding to, I learned, speaking of sound, did you know that you can actually test welds through playing sound through them to understand like where the weaknesses are? And I think all of these things are like, we are interconnected as humans. We are there. It's undeniable how interconnected what we are doing and all of our skills. So if you can find a way to pull, just even if you don't do the thing, you just learn about the thing and have conversations about the thing, you'll find that it helps assist you with the thing that you are doing. Period. End of story. Boom. Like,
No, I agree. And I'm just excited when I see you guys talking about stuff out there. I don't even care what you're talking about most of the time. I read them, but you know, it's fascinating to see where the conversations go and where you guys are at. And then when somebody makes a comment that's, you know, so, oh my goodness. There were so many good comments out there in the chat.
This little debate between Emperism and Andy about whether you're reading or visually learning, and Andy says you get so much more by reading. I think that can go both ways, because
I think,
again,
and I was going to address that too. As long as we're running over and stuff, was in the same way. When I read a book for pleasure, I absolutely have a live movie in my head. As I get into the characters and get invested in the story, I know what things sound like. I know what people taste like. I mean, as far as, it's not like I'm eating people, but the sense that they would have, those kinds of things, that's all part of my experience with reading. But when I read a technical book, no, that doesn't work the same way in my brain. When I'm reading a technical book, what I need is hands-on. What I need is the book to reference
while you're doing it,
what I'm doing. And then my hands learn what I'm supposed to do. And then my brain gets the fuck out wherever it's supposed to be. So yeah, I think there is a balance between the two of them. And I think all of us have a propensity towards one or the other to some degree.
Well, and
my son is not a reader at all. I and my daughter are huge readers. I've read thousands of books in my lifetime. Most of them for pleasure, but I have read thousands of books. That is not an exaggeration.
Well, and I love this idea of taking like a book that you read for pleasure and plucking out these little things that you can actually then go to the next book where you figure out a little bit more technical things, and then a little bit more, and then you have like this more expansive thing, and then you find the edges of things, and then you go to the podcast and you listen to a bunch of experts that consider these things, and then like I can't tell you, like, it just in trying to learn about marketing, I went down this like entire rabbit hole into sociology and behavioral science and understanding um, just like creating these sort of parasocial relationships with people, watching them grow. Because I always go back to the beginning of a podcast of somebody that I like, so I can listen to them evolve. And like it is like the coach lady that I talked about, like it's amazing. She has like, I think she's up to like 500 episodes, but I started at episode 1 when she was around 300, and I just ingested all of those in order for like a couple of weeks on end, and we're talking like years of her developing her thoughts and her ideas,
Fantastic.
and then re-expressing the same concepts in several different ways, and bringing on other people who have applied the concepts that she has expressed, and what they were doing with them. And it was just like, and then I would go and I'd follow that person, I would listen to all of their content, and it was just amazing what people were doing with this one. I mean, she started from a weight loss standpoint. And then she has built up coaches in like new feminism thinking. She has built up coaches who are helping people in the Mormon faith like be able to be true to themselves and still true to their faith and still have a voice. And then you have people who are like teaching about selling in this really like sort of nurturing an existential way and not just being a slick talker. And then you've got people who are, you know, using it to overcome grief and use it. It was just such an amazing experience. And that was just from her podcast. I haven't read a single one of her books, you know, and I think just really like opening yourself up to things. And again, like that was because I wanted to learn how to be a life coach. And it opened my world all the way up. And then all of a sudden I found myself learning about like technical startups and like the whole ecosystem of the startup world. And like through all of that is kind of, I think, where I found like Lisa Feldman Barrett and Stephen Kotler and somewhere in that mix of craziness, you know? And so if it wasn't for my ability to kind of rabbit hole and learn just for the pleasure of learning, but starting with like this very small idea of like, how do I market life coaching? And here I am in like this totally different space chatting with you about really great books that I've read. And I'm doing nothing related to life coaching. But I'll tell you what, I am 1,000 times more enriched because of my journey. And so you just don't know where you're going to end up when you start this journey. And I think it's very, very important to just allow yourself to like go through this process of like starting from something that seems trivial, like a fictional book, and allowing it to just blow your mind in ways that you'd never imagine it to do so before. Like your journey into audiovisual things and how to be more, you know, effective in that sense. Then when you look at like the art and science of sound therapy and your understanding audio.
Oh yeah, brown
production.
noise and pink noise and
you're
blue
understanding
noise,
it
and
from
all
this-
of them are different frequencies, and they do different things with your brain waves. It's weird.
And if you dabble out into like the sort of new age spiritual ideas about sound and then incorporate it into your very technical ideas about sound, like you can create, even just from a podcast standpoint and maybe producing this thing that we're doing here, we could create a very different product with that basis of knowledge that you're dabbling with out of a curious and very full sense, going through like these 5 books of stupid concept. And I say concept because, again, you know, the ROI on reading a book is very
That's
high. But
huge
also the
return
RO
on investment. Yeah.
The ROI of listening to somebody's like 5 years worth of podcasts, if you can power through an hour podcast and you go through it 5 years in a week and a half, like that's, you get their information, and then the amount of time that took for them to
Yeah,
really
it supercharges the information for you.
it does.
It just absolutely supercharges. And I think that's what's happening to me to some extent, and why it's hard for me, because everything is like, well, I can't. I can't do any of this stuff 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, have we been doing this for 6 months?
That's 6 months. This is we're
add
starting into July, which is the 7th.
Holy cow.
Yes. Welcome to Time Movement.
Holy cow.
Fantastic.
It goes by fast. Let me see. Open.
It does.
There it is. Okay, I found our outro, y'all.
Okay.
We had kind of a slow start, but I think we stayed a little extra to.
Oh, this
to have
was a
the
good
great
show.
Discussions and I think that as you go through it, Richard, you just get more and more passionate about it, and it's just fun to watch and be a part of that. And I'm so glad that you're here to have these conversations with me, because I am just so juiced up by these sorts of things that I could literally talk forever. But priorities call, and I'm gonna go see my boyfriend because I haven't seen him in ages.
Woo! Gonna be oh, never mind.
Dirty old man. Just dirty.
That's awesome.
Just
That's
stop.
awesome.
All right, you guys. Here we go.
Night says hello,
hello.
with the soft glow.
We're
We
out
took
of
a
here.
ride on this talk show.
Thank you all for joining in and being in the
Story
chat.
shared and secrets low.
Love you, Robbie. Love you,
Time
Em.
to
Love you, Auntie.
linger, but we
All the
gotta
people that
go.
joined us.
Oh,
Rachel,
everyone for conversation,
Voices
participation.
faded with the moon's
I'm so
call.
excited for next week.
Laughter echoed down the hall. Thoughts that flew like paper dolls. Wrap it up and let it fall. Turn the volume down low, my friends. This chatter's come to an
Thank you
end.
for getting up early.
Till
Hang out
we
with us.
gather again and again. Let these moments extend. In the quiet, hear the clock tick tock. Words won't stop, but we'll walk the walk. Dream a little till the next talk. Out of time, let's unlock. Turn the volume down low, my friends. This chatter's come to an end. Till we gather again and again. Let these moments extend. In the quiet, hear the clock tick tock. Words won't stop, but we'll walk the walk. Dream a little till the next talk. Out of time, let's unlock. Turn the volume down low, my friends. This chatter's come to an end. Till we gather again and again. Let these moments extend. We signed in with open minds. Now we drift on the book of fine. Page by page until we bind. Sweet goodbyes, let's unwind.